It is my pleasure to welcome you to the first Fireside Chat of 2025, The Business of Spirits. I myself, Professor Felicia Bowen, I'm sure you've seen me around campus, a business professor here at Prince George's Community College. So we're glad you're here. It's an honor to have you at this event. And we want to welcome our esteemed panelists, faculty, and students here. We are thrilled to have founder Donta Henson with us today. Let's give him a hand. Today's discussion is a unique opportunity for all of us to gain valuable insights into the world of spirits. Los Hermanos, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. If not, then he will say it when it's his turn to speak. 1978 Tequila is a premium spirit brand founded by brothers Donta and William Henson from Pasadena, Maryland. It was launched in August 2021, and the brand name translates to The Brothers in Spanish, with 1978 marking Donta's birth year. Good year to be born. The Henson brothers' journey into the tequila industry began during the COVID-19 pandemic when they developed a passion for tequila tasting. This newfound interest inspired them to create their own brand, emphasizing quality and sense of community. Partnering with the family-owned Casa Maestra distillery in Mexico, they produced tequila. Since its inception, Los Hermanos 1978 Tequila has expanded into numerous locations across Maryland and Washington, D.C., reflecting the brothers' commitment to excellence and community engagement. I'm also pleased to introduce our Fireside moderator, Dr. Reginald King, Chair of the Business and Entrepreneurship Department here at Prince George's Community College. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Good morning, all. This is normally not where I sit. I normally am the one doing the announcement, but this is going to be exciting. We welcome Donta here. I have a lot of questions, and we're going to ask some questions. The format is I'll ask some questions, he'll answer, and at the end, you can have at it. I think I'm going to cut some of my questions because it looks like this is one of those topics that I think is of interest to all of us. So, Donta, great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm gonna deal with the elephant in the room. Most of the students, when they saw tequila and they saw two Black men, and the one question was, he makes tequila, but he's Black. So you and your brother William turned your passion for tequila into a business during the pandemic. What inspired you both to take that leap, and what challenges did you face in launching Los Hermanos 1978 Tequila?
First, I want to say thank you for having me. I am very humbled to be here. And the impetus for us to start this brand was literally just the pandemic. So to tell the story really briefly, March 2020 comes, the whole world comes to a standstill. I'm working from home full-time telework. My brother works for Baltimore City Department of Public Works. So they laid off half his crew. They didn't want everybody at the same time to try to reduce the spread of COVID. So 1 week he works, 1 week he's off. So when he's off, he comes to the house, he brings a bottle of tequila, because that's what my wife likes. And so we're all sitting there, we're drinking, we're having a good time, we're talking. Da-da-da. The next time he comes, she'll buy a bottle, I'll buy a bottle. And we went through this thing where our little bubble for COVID was just me, my brother, and my wife. And every time, we get together, we're just sampling different brands. And I think where we went different from other people, we really took a deep dive into tequila to understand how different houses in Mexico produce tequila, the difference between the Blanco, the Reposado, and Añejo, which basically just describes the level of aging that each expression goes through. So all these different things, and it was my brother really. Like my brother, after a couple months, he got excited about all he's learned. He's out here, he's going to be an unofficial brand ambassador. And I laughed, like, that's great. That's what you want to do, do your thing. And with really where I saw an opportunity was, I could see him really getting traction. So if I came to Dr. King, you should try XYZ brand, tequila that you never heard of. My thinking was, you know what, okay, if I'm out somewhere and somebody hasn't, sure. Or if I see it, I might pick it up based off your recommendation. But what was happening was my brother would go tell somebody to get a tequila they never heard of. People would leave their house, go drive out, find it, take pictures of it, and send it back to him. Right? So the first time I saw it, I said, okay, maybe that's your friend, your homie, you had that kind of relationship. But that, y'all do that, but that's not common. My brother's like, no, bro, I'm turning people on. He's going to his phone, picture after picture after picture. And I was just like, whoa, like what? Like, hold on. I said, bro, this is different. You do all this work, you don't have a t-shirt or nothing. So, we should start our own brand. And he says, what do we know about starting tequila? And I said, well, we know good tequila tastes like. I said, the rest of it, if other people are doing it, then we can figure it out too. And then from then, I just told my brother, again, he was still on the fence. He didn't really believe because it sounds far-fetched. I said, give me a couple days, let me go look into this. Because the last thing I wanted is for us to let a good idea get past us because we didn't take it seriously. And that's where we started.
Now, again, I'm going to be ripping up the script a lot, but why would you start a business during the pandemic? We all remember the pandemic. Why would you take a leap and start a business during the time, and you mentioned half of his staff was shut down. So why would you start a business during such a risky time?
Gotcha. So the way I looked at it was, again, for us, you're still getting paid, you're home, you have a lot of free time. And so for us, it was like, okay, when you don't have to run this rat race of making this 25, 30-minute commute to work, you're working all day, then you got 30, 40 minutes back home, then you're rushing out to your kids' practice or to your doctor's appointment. You don't have to do all these things. And you're still getting paid at the same time, right? So it's now that space provides opportunities for other ideas to bubble up, for you to really go find your passion if you never had that time before. Because for me personally, I'm someone who joined the Navy a year after high school. I got married a year and a half after joining the Navy. I had a kid like 6 months after that. So I've never in my life had totally free time, right? Like from the time high school's over, I'm on the ball. I'm moving. I've got it moving and shaking. And when this thing came, honestly, it wasn't even really about starting a business. The way I tell the story to people, to give a good analogy is, if you watch the Fast and the Furious, after every big mission, they're back at Dom's house, they're sitting around by the barbecue, right? And they're having that family time because that's what makes their crew together. That's what it was for us. When we're sitting around having that family time, we thought it would be the greatest thing ever for us to be sitting around drinking our own brand. Not necessarily to go out and make a whole company or to go out here and try to steal people's market share, any of that. That was nowhere on my radar. For me, just that I had the idea of doing this thing, even if I never sold one bottle, the point that I got it and I made it happen, that was the what do you call it? I don't know. That was mission accomplished. Anything else after that was icing on the cake for me. That's the way I looked at it. And so when we are reaching out to people, and again, during COVID, this is April, May of 2020. Once I got the idea to look into this, I'm cold calling people. Like, again, everybody didn't answer, but people who did, they would give me 35, 40 minutes on a cold call. I'm emailing people left and right, shoot my shot, what happened? Because again, at the end of the day, one thing I learned is the chances you don't take, you'll never get there, right? Like, but the chances you do, there's an opportunity that you will get what you want, or things that you didn't expect. So, again, what do I have to lose? Just shoot my shot and let's see what happens. And people was just so forthcoming with information that, again, in less than a month, I was like, okay, I think I can figure out how to put this together. And I go to my brother and I said, listen, I understand now the difference or the relationships between a supplier, which a tequila brand is, the manufacturer or the distillery, and your distributors. I said, okay, I understand this relationship now. I understood how to start an LLC because previously, like I always kind of wanted to go in business while I was in the Navy. So I, kind of researched a little bit, and the process has gone tremendously easier from the early 2000s till now to start an LLC, right? So I said, okay, I told my brother, I said, hey, I'm going to start reaching out to distilleries. Let's see what happens. So I started, again, at this time now, I had no idea that tequila had to be manufactured in Mexico. So I'm calling distilleries all around the states. It says, hey, me and my brother, we are looking to start a new brand. We want to see if you guys can take us on. And everybody said, no, we're not taking on new brands. We're cutting production. Or if everybody remember, we're making hand sanitizer now, right? That's what we were. So, okay, fine. I didn't give up. I'm going to keep going. There's thousands of distilleries out here, so 2 or 3 no's is not going to deter me yet. I called one guy in Jacksonville, Florida, and he says, yes, I can take you and your brother on as a brand, but you got to go to Mexico to get the juice. Now, in my mind, if I got to go get to Mexico, then what I need you for, All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. So I started Googling distilleries in Mexico, private label, all these things. Now I'm finding distilleries and I'm finding off emails. Now, I don't speak Spanish. My brother does not speak Spanish. So part of the qualifier is when I'm shooting off these emails, did they come back to me in English or did they come back in Spanish? Right? Because if they don't speak English, then we can't work together. Right? So again, I had distilleries come back to me quickly. Right? So sure, we can take you on. Here's our requirements. Here's what we do. And what we learned is every distillery is different. Some will only produce the juice for you. And then you have to go out and source your own bottles, labels, and everything. Some will supply some of the dry goods and you have to supply some. Some are full service. Well, we don't know anything about any of this. So all these people, these different things, that's not gonna work for us. We need full service. Found one that was full service. Okay, now we're filtered through that group. We have distilleries who wanted minimums. So some people wanted 50,000 cases a year minimum to work with them. I'm not there. I have no idea what your tequila tastes like. There's no way in God's name I am committing that much money to anything I've never tried before. Not gonna happen. Found another distillery. They said, we don't have any minimums. We are full service. We specialize in working with small brands like yours. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, great. So I, set up a Zoom call. At the time, I don't know who I'm talking to other than the Zoom. I just know he works for the distillery. Come to find out later, this is the distillery's son, the owner's son that I'm talking to. So I'm telling him, me and my brother, we got this idea. We want to start this brand. We just want to have a little family brand. We just would like tequila that much that we want to have our own. Guy says, no problem. We specialize in little small brands. We can produce for you. Okay, great. I'm excited. And the guy says, have you ever been in business before? I said, not at all. Have you ever, any experience in the spinach industry? Not at all. He says, okay, no problem. Because we like you, we like the family thing. Because what we didn't know at the time, family is very huge in Mexico. Like tradition and family are very big. They like that us as two brothers was coming to them to produce. So this says, in addition to producing for you, we'll help you get the market. So I get off this Zoom call and I'm down Ocean City on the boardwalk with my wife and my daughter, and I walk away from them and I call my brother and I said, bro, we can do this. He was like, okay, bro, yeah. I said, no, you're not understanding. I just got off the phone with the distillery. We can do this. Okay, bro, well, you sound excited, so you're excited, I'm excited. I said, you know what? You'll figure it out later. And literally, I got off that call this in April. As soon as we came home, I went and started all the paperwork to get this LLC started. And it was honestly that thing. And when we started, again, I'm gonna move ahead a little bit, but I wanna say, when you're starting a business, you have to think about what do you want your business to project. And for us, and again, for us, when we do names, it's always something super unique. There's always apostrophes. Yes. There's always, no. I said, so again, me and my brother and my wife, we're sitting on my deck. And I said, listen, I want to put some parameters around this thing before we get to a name. I need something that makes sense now. I need something that makes sense in 20 years from now.
Now, I need you to go over that because most of the time when we do businesses, it's for the right now. So we name our business like Bagels Plus, and then 20 years down the line, now you're selling sandwiches and you're doing everything. So now you're not Bagels Plus. So I want you to kind of walk us through that line of, because now your name, Los Hermanos. Los Hermanos. So you come up with a name that is now a Spanish name with two African-American brothers. So walk us through that, sitting at that table. What does that look like?
Absolutely. So we're sitting on my deck, because again, this is still COVID, right? So we're out on the deck. And, I'm telling them, okay, we have to find a name for this business. And I said, before we get started, I want to put some parameters around this thing. I don't want any apostrophes. I don't want anything that's going to make it difficult for people to remember when they get to the store. Because of the tradition that we had in this country, we as a community put all of our hopes and dreams and foundation into our kids. And so we always want to name our kids something super unique to make them stand out. Everything that we didn't get as adults, we put that onto our kids, right? And it might be like that for a lot of other communities, just because your kids are your legacy, are your future, the next thing in school. And this thing was our baby. But what I didn't want to do is to make, we try to get some super unique name that we think sounds cool and sounds great, but a customer can never remember it after they saw it, right? So, okay, I put these parameters around it, and we're sitting there, and I says, okay, now go, what do you got? And everybody was like, I don't know, I had no idea. And I was like, really? Like, we're so excited about this, the three of us, nobody has any ideas. And everybody's like, no. So I said, okay, what are we doing? Why are we doing this, right? The why. Why are we doing this? What brought us to this place now that we want to start a tequila business? And it was literally that family time of all of us sitting around together. That bonding was the thing that brought us here. So I said, okay, how can I convey this in the name? And most people here might not know because we are in Miss College Girls, but Casamigos, huge brand. It means House of Friends, right? So, okay, Casamigos is taken. La Familia was taken by Jose Cuervo, right? So I'm like, I need a name that conveys this thing. And at one point in time, my brother and I, though we're 7 years apart, people used to think we were twins. So as I'm sitting here looking at our brother and I'm trying to get names, right? It just dawned on me. It was like, what's the brothers in Spanish? Because people would always see him like, where's your brother? They would see me, it was like, where's your brother? So it just dawned on me, like, what's the brothers in Spanish? So I Googled it real quick. And I was like, Los Hermanos. I was like, that's dope. It's a double entendre. The kills from Mexico, and we're brothers. To me, it made all the sense in the world. Los Hermanos. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I got a name. And they're like, what do you got? I said, Los Hermanos. It means brothers in Spanish. And my brother was like, that's dope. I love that. And my wife, she sat there for a minute. She was like, that's terrible. I said, really? She was like, no, you can't use that. Find something else. And I said, really? I like that. And she says, that doesn't work. So I said, all right, you know what? Give me a night, let me sleep on it. The next one I came back, I was just like, yeah, no, that name, it sticks, it makes sense. So Los Hermanos was the name that we had. We went to the patent attorney. We were trademark attorney. We wanted to get the trademark. The attorney says, it's too general, it's not gonna work. And I said, I don't need you to tell me no. I need the patent office to tell me no. Send it. So the guy's like, yeah, I'm telling you, send it. Okay, fine. He sends it off. Patent office comes back and says, it's too general. You gotta find something else. I'm not moving off this name. This works. This is perfect. So I was thinking to myself, okay, what are we gonna do? Because again, by the time it came back, we already got a logo done. We got, everything. So I'm like, I'm not backing off of this. We are keeping this. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, family, brothers, us, what can we do? What can we do? And then I realized, I don't know where I got the inspiration, but I realized before I was born, my brother was a solo child. When I was born, the brotherhood was born. So that's where we tied in, okay, Los Hermanos 1978, right? Because again, our brand is all about that brotherhood, that family. 1985. So send it back to the patent service. Okay, Los Hermanos 1978. You said it's not gonna work. Man, we've been through this before. I don't need you to tell me no. I need them to tell me no. Send it. He sends it off. They came back, said approved. Bet, we're off to the races now. We got a name trademark from the start. We got a brand. Let's go rock and roll. So when we go to Mexico now, we don't have anything but t-shirts with our logo, right? We go down to Mexico, this is November of 2020. We're so excited to get to Mexico. We're thinking like, again, this is my brother's first time and my first time in Mexico. Wow. We don't know anybody there. Distillery is going to receive us. Like, I think we got it on Thursday. They're going to see us Friday. So, back to the distillery. How do people get from Guadalajara, because that's where you fly into, to Tequila, which is 40 minutes south? They says, oh, we got a car service. Talk to this guy. They'll pick you up. They'll bring you down. Okay, great. So we get to the airport and we get to clear customs, and I'm looking for the guy to hold up the sign, Henson's or Los Hermanos or something. As soon as we come around, going through customs, guy in the back, tall guy, Donta. I'm like, what? He already researched us to find out what we look like, to know who we are. And he's waving us on. Okay, great. So the guy picks up, takes us to the hotel, and before he drops us off, he walks around, drops around the neighborhood. And he shows us, this is a good place to eat, this is a good place, you might not want to go there, all this thing. Drops over the hotel, okay, great. I'll be back, 8 o'clock in the morning to pick you guys up. Okay, great. So we go out, we have dinner, we're excited there in Mexico, we're taking pictures, because again, this is fun for us. Next morning we get up, all right, great, here we go. We get ready to go try some tequila. We're excited, take this ride down to the distillery. In our mind, we're gonna come in, we're gonna go sit down at the tasting room, let's get to business. That is not what happened at all. And this is why I tell people, we went to Mexico, we got a crash course in tequila. When we get there, they sign us in, so happy to meet you, welcome, da-da-da-da-da. Take us on the tour of the distillery. Okay, great. Now here we go right out the back door. And we spent the whole first day out in the field with the farmers.
Wow.
So for people who don't know, and I'll just cut here and let you ask a question, but the image you typically see of the people with the coas chopping the piñas, these are humidors. These are not farmers. These are the guys who get it at the very end of the process. So for the 7.5 years that this agave grows, there are actual farmers in the field, sun up to sundown, tending to these miles of agave. And at 3 years, when the agave grows, it spawns a baby. And if you don't chop that baby off, it will steal all the nutrients from the more mature plant. So they're out there, one, they're weeding because they don't use pesticides. They're out there weeding daily. They're, again, harvesting these babies and going and replanting them. Again, sun up, sundown. So this is how we spent the very first day. Second day, we were with the master distiller, walked in the plant, and then it was finally at the third day, after we seen the whole production from top to bottom, that we actually got to go sit down and then taste the room to develop our profiles.
Wow. All right. This is a process. I'm going through my questions because you kind of covered a lot. But what I want to ask is, many students here at PGCC are interested in business and entrepreneurship. If you could give them just one piece of advice about starting and scaling a business, after you just explained all of that process, if you had to give one of these students a piece of advice about starting a business, what would that look like?
I'm going to give this to you in a three-part answer. And the very first thing when you're starting a business is your why. Like when I started, again, I internally knew the why, but I couldn't tell anyone why, right? And it was just like, I couldn't come out and say, because this was fun, because nobody we knew ever looked like us that ever did this, right, at that time. I couldn't say that, so I had to develop a why, right? And your why will also give you your story. So when you're out here selling, whether you're selling a service or you're selling a product, it's not the product itself that you're selling, it's your story. Your story is what differentiates you from the rest of the market. Because remember, you're just starting. There's companies that have been in business hundreds of years that are selling the same product you have, if not better quality product. So you can't lean all in on the quality minus this, minus that. Sell yourself, sell your story. Your story is what gravitates, which brings other people to you. And lastly, I would say, as far as scaling your business, one, you have to understand not just your industry, but you have to understand business in general. So again, I'll give you a quick example. When we started, we knew tequila, right? Like we could take tequila from top to bottom, how it's made, all the different processes it goes through. But when I'm sitting there, and the first time I had to sit down with an accountant, he started talking about top line revenue, bottom line, right? And I'm just like, man, I have no idea what he's talking about, right? And I'm too embarrassed to tell this guy that I'm paying, I don't understand what he's talking about. So after our meetings, I would leave and go Google all these terms to try to make sure I look better the next time, which is crazy, right? So again, you have to understand your industry. And you also have to understand business in general. And I would say the biggest thing, if you want to scale your business, is to learn how to pitch. Because what I found in the short amount of time that I've been in business is the majority of minority entrepreneurs bootstrap their business way up. Where in a more large society, people start from pitching and they raise the money in the beginning. That allowed them to move faster further. So I think once you understand how to pitch and you can raise enough money, right? Because again, if you take the time to learn how to pitch and craft your pitch, you can raise enough money in the beginning to pay your account, to pay your attorney, rather than you bootstrapping and you work your way through it, and then you got to pay these people to do double the work because there were steps you missed or things you didn't get right because you did it on your own in the beginning. So I think those three things are like the biggest thing that I would tell somebody to do when you're starting a business.
And just when we talk about pitch, Donta, when we're pitching, does that pitch, learning how to pitch, will that help them in, let's say I want to work for your company? Should I know how to pitch you on even hiring me to work for you? I mean, we're talking about scaling for business, but what about me on a personal level? A student on a personal level. If I'm looking for an internship, I get the opportunity in an elevator with you one day, and it's like, it's Donta. So what does pitching look like? Does that work?
Absolutely. The majority of people that hire people with intern or stuff, they hire people they know or people that they've met. And again, this is why I can't stress it enough. How you show up matters. Because again, when you walk into a room, anyway, you never know who you will be in the room with. And again, you don't always get a lot of time, but you got to believe in yourself. Pitch yourself, right? And the one thing that I always tell people is the greatest thing ever. There's a clip of President Obama where he's sitting in a room and he's telling people, he said, don't be mystified by these institutions or these universities with these big names because you're thinking these people all that. President Obama said, when you get there, right, because this is somebody who went to Harvard, when you get there, you're thinking these people all that, and when you sit there at the table with them, you find out they're not all that. It's all right, and you leave and you go to the Senate, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is the U.S. Senate, and this is, these people all that. These people aren't all that. There are some fools sitting at this table, and there's some really bright people sitting at this table. And this is not me, this is President Obama. I'm telling you, go find it. And he's telling you the same thing. So when I get to the White House, and I'm at the highest office in the land, there are some fools sitting at this table. When I'm sitting here with other heads of state, and there's some really smart people. So again, right, like I went to university the same way you guys are in college now. It's a natural thing to have that imposter syndrome that feel like you don't really belong. These people are so much smarter. That is not the case at all. When you show up and be yourself, right? Like every opportunity is not for you. So don't get discouraged if things don't work out. But always, always, always show up and be yourself and pitch yourself and who you are and what do you believe in.
All right, I think I'm just going to take it to one more question. I want to open it up to you. The spirit industry is a multi-billion-dollar market covering production, branding, marketing, distribution, and retail. What are some entry points? If you can, you've studied the industry enough now. What do you say if a student is looking for an internship or starting a career? And again, they're looking at your area because, this is just that unique area. I mean, it's spirits that we really, honestly, Donta, before you came, it's not an area I really looked at. You actually kind of lit my eyes to, okay, there are African-American people in this industry. So what would you say with this? If a student is looking for starting a career or starting an internship within that industry, how would you kind of steer them, or what advice would you give them?
Gotcha. I will start out by saying, in this multi-billion-dollar, somewhere close to $1 trillion industry, African Americans are 13% of the consumers and only 1% of the owners.
Say that again, please.
We make up 13% of the consumer base for these multinational companies, but we're only 1% of owners, right? So again, it's one of these things where it's something that you see all the time, but you don't necessarily think about it, right? You see it and you go out your business, or even if it's a product you consume, you're not looking at behind it, who's behind it, what's happening. And so now, when I started, I think I was tracking maybe 5 to 10 different brands, small brands across the country, right? That's excluding all these celebrities. And I just it was a really small niche thing for us to be in this space. But what happens is people saw other people that looked like themselves doing this and says, If they can do it, then I probably can do it too, right? And more people get it. Now, I think there are like over almost 300 brands across the country through the various spirits category. So that's one thing. Right now, because again, it's not just about starting a business, it's about feeding your business and scaling your business. 3 years ago, there was a company called Pronghorn. Pronghorn is a land animal. The way they describe the pronghorn is it's the fastest land animal over distance. So in a short sprint, the cheetah will win, right? If it's racing the cheetah. But if a pronghorn races a cheetah for a mile, 2 miles, that pronghorn has that endurance to keep up that same speed to outlast that cheetah. So Pronghorn's mission was to be a disruptor. Their goal was to generate $50 billion worth of value in Black-owned brands in the spirits industry over the next 10 years. So this is a company that came in to really be a disruptor that says we're investing in Black women-owned brands. Not only are we just investing in these brands, but we're going to diversify the C-suites and the corporate side of this industry. And so they are like one of the only people that I know that really made a conscious, concise effort to do internships in the spirit industry for minorities. So the last 2 years, they went on the HBCU tour to go out there and show people like this was an opportunity that you might not have looked at before. Right? So again, there are companies like Constellation, like Diageo, that do offer internships. But again, like we know for the most of the world, a lot of times people who work in these places are going to recommend people that they know and their kids to get these internships. So we don't necessarily always get it. And I'm saying that you won't get it. I'm just saying it's not necessarily guaranteed, which is, again, nothing in life is guaranteed. But this is Pronghorn was a company, again, that's made its impact to be a disruptor in this industry. Again, so if you want to be an internship, which again, I feel like I'm drifting away from your question, but
No, you're good. You're good.
if you're looking to get an internship in this industry or a career in this industry, I think one of the very first places you want to start is if you don't have LinkedIn, get your LinkedIn, join some of these communities, because what you want to do is you want to show, you want to show any potential employer that you understand the terminology, first of all, of the industry. You understand a little bit. Like, you don't have to be an expert, but again, if I'm going to hire somebody, even as an internship, if you have to show me that you have an incredible job, because I don't have time to train you. I don't have the resources to train you, especially in small business, as opposed to someone who's already has somewhat of understanding of the industry. They at least understand the lingo. Okay, then here's somebody at least I can work with. Because if I'm evaluating candidates, right, and people have no idea, right, I just want to work in this thing, I think it's the greatest thing in the world, right, but I don't have any experience, any knowledge at all. As opposed to at least someone who can at least talk to me in that same language. Okay, then that cuts the time down that this person goes from X, from A to Z. I'm going to go talk to this person, and let's have a further conversation to see if you're right for us, right? So again, it's free to get on LinkedIn. It's free to join some of these communities, start understanding some of this language. But then again, this goes to any industry across the board. Find out who are the players in this industry, right? Like, again, to make it something everybody can relate to. We all know Nike, we all know Reebok, you all know Adidas, right? These are brands that have been around forever. You know those brands. But if you want to start getting to, those spaces, you have to know who else is a player in, right? Who else is out there making shoes besides them? What is Puma doing, right? What are some of these other companies doing, so that when if you do get these meetings, right, now at least you can talk a little bit about this industry at overall. You still understand some of what's going on. Because again, for employers, 9 times out of 10, people rarely hire people with no experience. If you have some experience, right, like, okay, I can work with that. If you have a lot of experience, great. But it's very rare that you're going to get right from the start with no experience and walk into a job, especially with something that pays well, right? Like, that's just not how it works. And again, it's the same thing with college. When you first start, right, regardless of what your major is, every person that comes out of freshman year, we're going to level set. We're going to go through English. We're going to go through math, right? We're going to go through your communications. We're going to make sure we have a solid foundation to build on before you go off into whatever your specific major is. And I never really understood that before I joined college, right? I was like, well, I'm an adult. I know how to type. Like, why do I got to do this? Why can't I just start and come in? And because my background is in healthcare administration, right? So why can't I just come in and do these things? But it wasn't until I got there that I seen all these different people who are at various different levels of understanding and levels of communication. And so those first 2 years really kind of hones everybody. Says, okay, when time you leave your sophomore year, we all have an equal level set, a basic understanding of how to communicate and how things work. And it might not seem like it now because you're in the beginning of it, but when you get to your senior year, when you get to your first year in corporate, right, or whatever, your second year, you can see the difference it really makes of how well you communicate and some of your coworkers who can't communicate well, right? Especially because regardless of whatever industry you're in, you have to communicate with people. If you cannot express to people, what do you need from them? What do you want? Like, what are you here for? You're gonna have a hard time. And when you're your own business owner and there's nobody else to lean on, you have to be that person to communicate the message of your business. Why should I support your business? Why should you as a consumer buy my product, right? Like, you have to give them a benefit. Because again, a lot of us will say, we'll support a business just because it's black. Okay, that's great, right? That's fine. But my philosophy is you have to give a consumer something of value for that. Because you can sell something one time, but if it's not good, people are not going to come back and spend their money with you again, right? Like, you have to give them equal value to make them feel like they're getting something of value. And that's one reason why we always price our product at an easy, approachable rate, because we want to make sure that we felt like, we know we have amazing tequila and it was award-winning, but we want to make sure that we felt like we were always giving people something of value when they spent their money with us.
All right, let's give them a hand. Now, I'm going to allow, if anyone has a question, please come up here. And Donta said the tequila is award-winning, but he did not mention that they have won to date 30 awards. 30 awards for something that he knew nothing about. And I want you to think about where he's taken us. You started during the pandemic. That takes us around 20. So in 5 years, in less than 10 years, you've already won 30 awards doing something that you and your brother had no idea that you knew how to do, sitting around a table. And I want everyone to kind of picture that idea in your head. Just an idea of a brother, two brothers, and a wife sitting on a deck creating a business. All right, if anyone has a question, please. Thank you. Please come right up. If you have a question, you can just come up and he'll answer. And please, again, like I mentioned from before, you have a CEO, you have an idea, just come with any questions that you have. I don't think he's not willing to answer anything. And you notice that you see that he's open, so.
Hey, a really simple question for you. How do you successfully work with your brother? Like, how do you work with a family member and keep the relationship with the family member and essentially your business peer? So how does that work for you?
That's a really great question that we get a lot. And honestly, this is one of the most challenging parts of the business, because you can't treat your brother the same way that I would treat an employee. Whereas though, when things, again, we are partners, and so it's a relationship. And so going in, we had to clearly define what his role was going to be, what's my role going to be. When we got to a place of where we disagreed, how were we going to solve that? And so when it came to financial things, we said, okay, that will be our accountant, who will be that third person to break the tie. When it came to legal matters, it would be the attorney who would decide. When it came to the internal operations of the business, right, like, we just had to have a process that says, okay, which one of these lanes gonna fall then? And when it became, again, so this is real life, we are real people. We don't always agree on everything of how to move forward with things, right? And so, like, we bumped heads a lot, but we had this understanding that when we do get to this place where we bump heads, we were gonna take a time out, right? Because again, I can't talk to my brother the same way that I talk to somebody that I'm paying. right? Because even after the business, we're still gonna be brothers, right? Like I still got to see this guy at holiday time and then on the weekends, right? So again, and he has the same thing. So knowing that, it's a certain level, a certain way that we have to speak to each other, because again, we're two men, right? And everybody feels like their point of view is the right point of view. So it took a lot of time in the beginning to really kind of get that balance. But I think the best thing going, like for people who are going to work with family, understand there's a really, really, really valid reason why people say don't do business with your family, right? And outside of that, if you are, I think you really have to start from the beginning to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities and what happens when it doesn't go the way that you want it. Because don't think like, because me and my sister or me and my brother, we had this great relationship, we're going to be perfect partners forever. That is not how it works in any relationship, whether it's your brother and sister, it's your husband, your wife. There's always a point where people disagree. And I think having that up front, because I would say in my case, unlike marriage, right? Like I had time to plan this thing right. Like I had already been married for a bunch of years. So I said, okay, I already knew, a little bit of conflict resolution and how we figure this thing out. So when we get to this place now, I had the tools to say, okay, this is how we're going to mediate, when we don't agree.
I also just wanted to say that I really love your story. You're a very great storyteller, and I could just feel all the passion and, the family really in the business. But I guess my question is, I'm in the Principles of Management class, and we're learning about, different org structures, stuff like that. And I'm wondering, what problems have you run into, because all your factors of production are in Mexico. So what type of stuff have you run into? What type of disruptions, and how do you handle those?
Thank you for the question. I think this is probably the best question that I've got today. What problems have we run into? All of them. All of them. So, as you mentioned, for us, all of the production happens in Mexico. So first, from the start, when we're talking about business, you have to have capital, right? The way the distillery works is you're not getting this stuff on consignment and you're selling and then you're going to pay them. That's not how it works. You have to pay for 50% of your order up front. And then when the order is complete, before they ship it, you have to pay the other 50%. Now, mind you, your product is sitting in Mexico all bundled up ready for shipping. So then you have to pay a trucking company to get your stuff to bring it up. You also have to pay a customs broker to get it across the border. The moment it crosses that border, you have to pay your federal excise tax. So in a lot of other businesses, you pay your tax at the end of the year, or you pay it quarterly. Not with this business, right? So one, you have to have capital up front. So one of the things that for us that we ran into when we first started, again, because this was a small family business, we had a very small order. Great, we didn't care. It was for us, and wherever we sold it, it was cool, it was great. We got this distribution deal less than a month on the market, right? And now we're excited. We got a distributor. We are selling in more stores. Okay, great. We had 300 cases. The distributor, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, great. This guy's going to buy 300 cases. He's going to take it 30 days. He's going to pay us. We're going to go back to the distillery. This guy, first order, took 25 cases. Okay, this is something, but how are we going to make this work, right? Next order, guy takes another 25. So the short of it is, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to have enough money to keep my operations running when this guy's paying us on 60-day terms, right? I'd already laid out all this money to the distillery to get the shipment, to get across the board. How am I going to keep this operation running while I'm waiting for this guy to piecemeal me my money in order for us to go take this next order? So again, we ran into running out of money. That's the number one thing I think that keeps this small business from growing. Luckily for us, we found a CDFI that was willing to loan us money. And so one, running out of money, that was one of the very first things we ran into. Okay, once we solved that problem, another issue we ran into where in the beginning, the distillery was sourcing all of the dry goods for us. So the bottles, the labels, the caps, the boxes, once we sold for inventory, all right, we're selling like gangbusters. Now we got into an issue where the distillery, the labels they had were peeling. the people from who they were sourcing the labels from had some glue in there that was faulty. So we're paying all this money out. We get the shipment in, right? Nobody opens the box until it's retail.
Yes, yes.
So all this stuff is coming. We're out. We're promoting. We're doing what we're doing. Retailers open up these boxes, and the labels are peeling off. Oh my God, my heart sunk. Right? Like, this can't be us, right? Like, you come to walk into somebody's store and see a product, and it's there, and the labels are peeling off. Oh my God. So this is embarrassing, right? So now we're going back to the distillery, and they're like, it looked good when they left our thing. What do you mean? You sold me this, right? This thing is looking terrible out on the shelf. We don't know what to tell you. They passed all of our quality checks when they left. Okay, so this is the issue, right? So this is the issue. Me and the distillery going back and forth with for months. Mind you now, business doesn't stop. Sales keep going. Takes us to happen. Everything's going on. We get to a point now where shipment comes, the labels are completely falling off out of the box. Retailer says, I'm not taking this shipment, send it back. Now we're losing money. We had issue where, so we missed the entire second quarter of 2023 because of this labels. So for us, spring is prime time for us. We lost all revenue for 3 months because we couldn't get labels. When the distillery finally gets a new manufacturer to produce new labels for us, they send it back, all right, we're back in business, we go. What happens? I'm getting phone calls from retailers. The corks are coming off the bottom. Oh my God. So mind you, we have this little brand that's just growing and started getting placement, getting traction. We just had this whole issue where all the labels falling off. Now the corks are coming off there. I am livid. I am absolutely livid. I'm like, this has got to be the worst. So we faced those issues. We faced issues in the beginning where we couldn't find an accountant that was familiar with our industry. And part of the problem was I was looking locally. I was only looking around this area for an accountant. And it wasn't until I met some other business partners that said it doesn't matter where your accountant is, as long as they have the expertise. Right? Like, and so again, I'm spending a lot of money dealing with accountants and bookkeepers who had no idea about this industry, but that was willing to take my money. And again, you're paying for people and you're not getting services in return. So like there's a lot of hurdles that you go through, and this, I'll wrap this up here. Last shipment we had, this is 2024. Now, we are already pretty much established. We are moving like hotcakes. We are selling. We just opened up in New York. We got a market for us. So we're in Maryland, DC, Delaware, New York, New Jersey, and Atlanta. We're full steam now. We got investors. We're rocking and rolling. So I go to Mexico in January because we had to sit down with the distillery. Says, listen, emails ain't getting it, phone calls ain't getting it. Let's sit down face to face. Let's talk about this issue because I can't come back with another run where these labels are there. And so what they tell me is most brands usually take this stuff in-house. They did it because that's what they do in the beginning for small business. But it's a natural progression that you take this stuff in-house, you do it yourself. Okay, fine. So I'm talking to them about doing custom bottles now. Again, this is huge capital outlay. But I can't go through a whole another year of this, not have a product, or your product is faulty sitting on the shelf. So what happens is we go through this whole custom bottle project. Again, so while I'm still running a day-to-day business, I'm out here with 5 different vendors trying to put this thing together. We're running out of product while we're waiting. So I go back to the distillery and I source a small order. Say, all right, give me 600 cases while we're waiting for this big order to come. We're out of product in New York. Okay, Maryland still has product. DC, still has product. Atlanta has product. All right, fine. So the distillery says, all right, but I said, I don't want your labels. I'll get my own labels and I'll ship them to you. So I partnered with a company in Ohio to purchase the labels, have them ship it down to Mexico. The distillery tells me, all right, I'll send them all the UPS tracking information. This is your bottom date, this is July. Okay, great. July 15 comes, says, hey, checking on this, if you guys got the labels, make sure we're still on track for production. It says, we don't have your labels. I said, what do you mean? You already gave me a bottling date. You don't give me a bottling date unless you have all the product. They said, no, I'm sorry, let me go check with the manufacturer. Might have missed something. They come back and say, no, we don't have your labels. What do you mean? The UPS tracking number says delivered. Could have found out the labels got held up in customs. $4,000 worth of labels sitting in customs. It's been over 30 days, so now the UPS consider them abandoned. So now we run out of product in Maryland too, right? I'm getting called from retailers. My employees like, what are we supposed to do, right? So I gotta pay these people, right? Because nobody's gonna stay and work for free because I don't have product to sell. So again, we're not bringing in any money, we're losing money. Okay, so I go back to the distillery. It says, what do we do? It says, you gotta get a customs broker to get this stuff out of customs. All right, so I go to my guy, customs broker, says, hey, can you get this? He says, I might can get it, but it's gonna be expensive. Expensive is relative. What are we talking about, right? So let me go look into it. 2 days later, guy comes back and says, yeah, I can't get the labels. Oh my God. So the manufacturing company says, we can do another reprint. We'll give you a 10% discount because of what happened, but it's gonna take us 2 weeks. I'm not paying for this again, right? Because what we didn't know is you can't ship it directly into Mexico. You have to ship it to the border. One of these border towns, have a customs broker import it into Mexico, and then they'll ship it the rest of the way. So, all right, really quickly, I go back to the distillery. I says, we gotta find an idea. We gotta find something because I'm out of product now. I got 600 cases in here on your floor holding up your production. What do we do? They says, well, we have a customs broker. Try our guy. Okay, so I go to this guy. I says, listen, we got $4,000 worth of labels sitting in customs. So 30 days now. I don't know if you can get it. My guy said he couldn't get it. So the guy says, send me all the paperwork. I can go get it. Okay. Guy comes back 3 days later. Says it costs you $4,000 to get your stuff out of customs. Oh, are you kidding me? $4,000. After I just paid $4,000 for these labels. I gotta pay this guy $4,000. Whatever, man. Pay this guy $4,000. I'm completely out of product in all markets. So now, this is August. So I go back to the distiller. Says, okay, now that you have all the labels, can you pick me your next production date? It says, sure, no problem. Okay, so this is all via email. What is your next production date? I'm thinking, early August, mid-August. It says September 17th. What? How do we go from July to September? They said, that's the next date we have available. Oh my God. All right, put it on there. So I'm living now. So now I go from July with no product all the way to September. This thing comes, all right, September, they finally say, hey, your order's ready. Okay, bet, let's get the truck up here on the hot and heavy. Let's move. What happens? Truck comes, pick it up. We get to the border. This guy gets stuck at the border for 3 days because the paperwork wasn't right for the distiller. So now the import broker and the distiller going back and forth trying to get the paperwork right. So I lose 3 more days there. Guy gets across the border. Usually, from the time the distiller says ready until the time they reach our warehouse in Jersey, 10 days. Lose 3 days at the border. He gets across the border. The guy says, it's going down here. You got to sit for another 2 days. Oh my. So these are the types of things, right? Like that perseverance that you have to overcome. Long story short, it took us over 2 weeks to get this small order out of Mexico and into our warehouse before people start purchasing again. So it's like these things are the kind of contingencies that you have to be mentally prepared for, much less financially. Like there's always going to be problems, right? And I think this is one of the hardest things that it was for me to learn. In my mind, we're going to do this, and we're going to move, and everything's going to move smoothly, which is not the case. You should always anticipate there's a problem and have some kind of contingency plan because it's always there.
Wow. Come on, let's give him a hand. I know we are out of time. We have yes. You have a question? We have one question left.
Okay.
So yes.
You were talking about the downside of business with the labels and everything like that. When do you really see the upside? When you're no longer doing this? Okay, when do you kind of do more like this instead of this?
Just because I'm long, I'll give you a really short answer. In this industry, you won't see profitability until year 5, 6, right? And for me, so the money can't be a motivation for you because if the money is the motivation for you, you're gonna burn out quickly because the work tremendously outweighs that. For me, what's the motivation for me that I always looked up is for things like this. For people to see what we're doing and get excited about what we're doing. That was always the motivation for me. So when I'm showing up in the liquor store to go do this tasting, and people are like, oh wow, you're really the owner? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh my God, right? Those things are what really motivated us to keep me going. Because again, you're on this thing, dated. This is the most capital intensive business I've ever been a part of. Right? Or things. So again, like the money can't be your motivation. You have to find what else motivates you if you're going to be in this industry other than that. And so for me, it was always people showing up for us that motivated me to keep going.
All right, let's give him a hand. Now, we're going to close out now. If you have any questions, again, Donta, thank you so much for showing up and for telling your story. How many enjoyed his story? That last piece, we could have stayed there for the next, I don't know how long. It's like every point you should have stopped. I mean, honestly, most people would have just said, okay, this is it. But when you're motivated by money, you'll stop. But when you're motivated by your passion, and this is one thing that my professors always taught me, that your passion will always be the thing that pays. Money will find you. And I tell my faculty that all the time. Money will always find you. Don't chase the money. But if you stay within your dreams, as he did, the money will find you, the connections will be there. But thank you again